Yes. Okay. All right. We'll get going, right? Anne, Robert, shall we begin? Okay. Okay. I'll keep an eye out for Denali. What am I doing? Okay. Okay, can I get a thumbs up if you can see it? It's okay, can see? Okay. Okay, awesome. Welcome to another Toolbox Tuesday. We're in our housekeeping period, which goes until about 4:10. We're just going to review the agenda. We've got some time blocked out here at the very beginning to do what we're going to do every time now. We're going to do what's called 5 minutes of strengths. Robert will lead that shortly. And then we have our couple parts to our main event. One is the discussion of Stephanie Krause's book, Making It, in small group discussion. Then we have a break. And then we're going to hear from me about the innovation playlist, how it came to be. And I'm going to be showing you some things, and we're going to watch a short film that comes from the innovation playlist. And I'm going to make the connection to why we're having you in your school impact project form reference or have an eye out for the innovation playlist as you develop your projects. And then the last section of today is going to be a sort of 2-minute elevator speech moment where you're going to have a chance to work from the questions that I sent you about your school impact plans. And so everybody will be given a couple of minutes to talk about it. And that'll be our first chance to hear what people are planning to do. And if there's time at the end, we're going to do an exit ticket. Okay, so let's go. Actually, let me just go back for a second, Robert. Hold on. And then forward. Just real quick, anybody at this point, any questions, any clarification needed? If you want to come off mute and jump in, no? Are we? Okay, all right. Sounds like we're okay. All right, Robert. Oh, here comes Denali. Hold on one sec. Let me let her in. Hang on, Robert, one sec. Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, Robert, are you doing a preface here? It's all yours.
A quick preface, yes. So those of us who have worked with strengths know that if we don't continue the investment, it's one of those things that can kind of dissipate or evaporate. And we hope that some of the initial work we did on strengths was profound for you and eye-opening and was something that you were learning about yourself and others. And so we really want to keep strengths in the forefront. Every time we meet, there'll be what we're going to call 5 minutes of strengths to show you the different way that strengths can be used. And in this particular case, how you can create and maintain a strengths-based team and why you need to think about strengths every time that you bring people together. So this is a quick film that is produced by Gallup to help you think about how to take your individual strengths into your teams. So roll it, Josh.
Okay, Robert, stand by for one more second. Joel is trying to join us. And let me take this link up here. Sorry. Okay, here we go.
Is unparalleled. I think one of the coolest parts of Clifton Strengths is The volume is kind of low. Is that me?
Josh, when you shared the screen, did you remember to check the box?
I did. Hang on. Let me recheck.
It looked like the volume was low on the master.
Stand by.
So the value of using Clifton Strengths
Better?
for teams is unparalleled. I think one of the coolest parts of Clifton Strengths is you get to find out what it is that you naturally do best, but in a really powerful way, you also find out what your unique contribution is to the team. So when you think about team building activities, whether it's how do we go about getting stuff done, whether it's how do we go about winning others over, persuading others, influencing others, when we think about how as a team do we build relationships, both intra-team relationships and interpersonal relationships with teams across the organization, but then how do we also absorb, process, think through really challenging and complex decisions? All of those things can be unlocked with the power of Clifton Strengths. And so Strengths gives a lens for teams to know what each person's filter is, but then to also play to each one of those filters and capitalize on overarching performance as you think about how you engage each other as a team.
It creates this common language where you know, here's what I bring, here's what you bring. How can we leverage that to help us be a more effective, efficient, dynamic team?
And when we have that rapid fire transmission of understanding, and we have reference points of achiever, and we both quickly know what that word means and represents in terms of motivation, in terms of emotion, that's incredibly powerful. So all of a sudden, our confidence increases, both from the team leader perspective and the team member perspective. So there's a trust then that comes on the other side of the confidence level. And now all of a sudden, everything is opened up. If we have the confidence in each other that we're speaking the same language and what's represented there is uniform, and we trust what's being said, that's a safe place. We are incredibly intact. We're not being preferential. We're actually all about performance. It's not politics. It's not a zero-sum game. Let's literally expand the opportunities to put you in a spot where you can be amazing.
Once you know how it is that you go about doing what you do and how it is that the other people on your team go about doing what they do, you can then adapt your team dynamics in order to let both of those things thrive. So whenever I know how it is that I think, feel, and behave, and I know how you think, feel, and behave, we can leverage that to achieve success, whether it's as complementary partners within a larger team, or when we think about the larger team dynamics of what common goal we're trying to achieve together, and how can we do that both in a relational context and in a business performance context.
So just in the last minute, just a couple of things to think about that really popped out for me. We're not gonna have a discussion, but I just wanted to bring out a couple of points to think about. This idea of filter, no matter how you slice and dice it, when you're involved in a discussion, when you're looking at problem solving or you're planning an activity or an event, you are hearing things in a certain way according to your strengths. And so it's really important that you are aware of other people's filters as well, because you are definitely, I know I am, I'm filtering through my strategy strengths, and I'm already heading in that direction. And I want to make sure I don't leave the people who are more engaged behind. Secondly, the other point that was really well made was these reference points. As you are working with other people, you're going to hear things, you're going to feel things, you're going to think things, and those are your reference points. But remember, in a given group, there are literally hundreds of other combinations of reference points. I also liked what they said about think, feel, and behave. Whenever you're in a group, you are thinking things, often in silence, just like I see you doing now. As I'm saying something that might strike a chord, you're going to start to feel something. And then often when we're in a group setting or in a team, we ultimately behave. And sometimes we behave in our body language, in our facial expressions, and then we actually come out and say something. Believe me, based on the research, this is all driven by strengths. The final word, which is the most important word, is trust. If you can get the filtering done right, if you can get the reference points, if you can get the thinking, feeling, and behaving done, you're on a better road towards trust with your teammates and with your colleagues at your school. So that's our 5 minutes of strengths for this time. Josh, over to you.
You sound like High Now on the Sunrise, Hawaii News Now Sunrise show, Robert. Well done. Well timed. Okay, terrific. Joel has joined us, everybody, so he's going to stay with us during the course of the session today, which is terrific. Okay. Okay, so this part of our program today has to do with Stephanie Malia Krause's book, Making It. And you guys got the screenshot of this slide and these 4 questions. Again, I apologize. It's been a little bit kind of chaotic trying to get a handle on her part 1, part 2, and chapter 1 and chapter 2 sequence. And the thing, I kind of wish she had written it just as a series of chapters, but there you go. So what we've got on the table today is in fact all of part 1, but it really, the focus of our questions is chapter 2, but we can definitely reference chapter 1 if we want. So what we're going to do right now, assuming that everybody's got these questions, we're going to come out of screen share and I'm going to arrange everybody into 2 groups. Robert and Ann are going to be each in one of the groups. Joel will be in one of the groups. One group will be a group of 4, the other group will be a group of 5. And I'm going to be dropping in and out of both. So just give me a minute here. And we've got budgeted about 25 minutes for this. And then we're going to come out of that 25 minutes. And each of the groups is going to look for a volunteer to sort of, in front of the whole group, synthesize what the conversation was about. We are anticipating that Stephanie Krause is going to join us in 2 weeks for a good part of our session on November 2nd. We're really excited for that. We're going to use that time to help arrange your small group sessions with her. And again, she's going to join us at the end of the course to be a keynote for our celebration summit. And she's really looking forward to meeting all of you in 2 weeks from now. So let me stop share and let me arrange the groups.
Josh, it's not pretty, but I pasted the questions into the chat for anybody who wants to refer to them.
Thank you, Robert.
Stop. I don't know.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Getting faster at this thing. All right, I'm going to open the rooms and you all can head off to your 2 groups. Here we go.
Having trying to think back through this chapter that I read, but when I'm looking at question number 2, making it will require being able to manage what we give our time and attention to. in order to do this, what would you suggest we stop doing to find time to start doing? And this may be because of what I've had to deal with the past week, but I'm going to say I think social media is taking away too much of our time. I'm not anti-social media, but I do feel like I've just seen an inundated use of it. It's just everywhere. And I just feel like, I think there's some teachable moments for students and for adults. For proper use of social media, there's ways to integrate into education to make it purposeful and meaningful. But I feel like that's some of the things that we can give our attention, take away from, and then find time to actually start doing more, having more social conversations, more verbal social conversations, because I feel like students really lack the ability to communicate properly and appropriately in face-to-face conversations. And I think that's what the world's going to need.
Serena, do you have an example of where you're seeing like a total haywire misuse of social media that's zapping time away right now?
TikTok challenge. There's this TikTok challenge that is out that is promoting destruction of school property. It's usually, especially in middle school, it is the number one reason for altercations between students because of comments that are posted on individual social media accounts. But the biggest thing has really been the TikTok challenges for us. I don't think we've been hit as hard as other schools have, but we definitely got our little taste of it. So yeah, that would be my question. My answer to that is that's where it's really become a huge issue.
That particular TikTok challenge actually made it to the CBS Evening News last week, that it's happening across the country, and that strangely, Serena, it seems to be a lot of middle school students. This is where it seems to be dropping in.
Yeah.
When I read this question, I kind of interpreted it more of like the we in this case would be like schools, but not like from like the I was thinking about it from like the teachers and the administrator side, like what is our focus in terms of like the challenges or the tasks like that we would want to focus on in terms of addressing with students. And so it's interesting because I think I do agree with what you're saying, Serena, that there is an obsession with like time from the student side, like how can we shift them away from screens in some ways and try to avoid that cognitive load. But what's challenging about this question is that there's so like we have to balance what is mandated, and some of it is necessary, and also with like the innovation that we want to try and take risks on. And to me, when I looked at this question, I thought a lot about the focus on like content and like trying to really drive home like the content doesn't matter as much as mindset. And that's kind of when I look at this question about like what we need to stop doing is I think we need to stop focusing so much on academic content, and instead more on like experiential learning that helps shape mindsets and empathetic people. And it's also somewhat in conflict sometimes with how students are measured and how schools are measured as well. So that's where it's a challenge, but there's got to be a balance.
Yeah, part of the reason for writing this question was with the shackles on and the shackles off. You can answer the question by saying, well, we can't possibly stop doing all the stuff we think we need to because we have to, versus what if we didn't have to, what would we take away? And we've got to start having the conversation of what if we didn't have the shackles on, what do we need to stop doing based on her book to start doing the things we don't have time for now. So try to answer it if you were, the genie of education and you could wipe away some of the things that you have to do, what would you stop doing?
And I have to say, Kosh, you're exactly right. I probably went way out of the boundary lines with my
Oh,
response.
no, actually, I appreciate the fact that you heard from a student perspective, because I didn't take it from that. So I kind of like that. But
No, but I agree with you if you're looking at from the school perspective and what can be done. I appreciate that.
I think, if you did say it was like a genie level, you would say eliminate the A through F grading, the 120 credit hours, start figuring out the competencies, and then the actual demonstration of the competencies. I think it really hits hard when you start saying things like the high school diploma is not a good determinant of college success, career success, or any kind of success. So then what does the high school diploma mean? And then we hold it in such a high regard, but yet it's pretty obvious. I think people outside of education don't really see it as much, but I think when you're in education, you can totally see that the high school diploma means so many different things from different schools. And even within the same school, you'll see that high school diploma doesn't, even between classes, it's a totally different meaning for how they got it. So, getting that demonstration of competencies and just establishing the competencies, I think is going to be the hard part, is what is truly important, and focusing on what's important, and trying to get rid of the stuff that we value so much in high school. And really, do we really need that going on? And sorry, I'm kind of getting mixed up between the Ted Dintersmith book and this book. So
No, it's the same. You're
Yeah,
right
not hard
on
to
the
do.
money. Ken, you're right on the money, because it's the same premise.
Yeah.
Of course, Ted goes into a lot more detail around how much time is being taken for things that we just don't have time to do. She is talking about, as you'll see later in the book, about competencies. So you're right on the money.
I'm kind of wondering, Ken, and referencing what you said, Serena, is I've been wondering this for 5-6 years, ever since I first saw Most Likely to Succeed, that some of these things, Serena, like a TikTok challenge that these kids are doing, why are they doing it? And I connect it to what Ken's talking about, because the pathway that they're on, and Robert has talked about this as well, it's sort of like the kids are raising their hands and saying, please make education relevant for us. And as long as it keeps being irrelevant for us, we're going to keep creating things like TikTok challenges. And I know that that's reductive and simplistic, but I just keep wondering, like, what's behind that? So Ken, referencing what you're saying, is that things that we could stop doing might end up having that impact, Serena, on things that they are doing. I mean, I did those things when I was in high school. I used to sit around the payphone and, at Punahou School, and used to actually call that phone so I could get people at school to answer that phone. And then I would, do something really stupid over the phone. It was like, I didn't want to be in class. So that was the most fun thing I could do. So it's not like it's a new thing, right? Yeah, but.
Josh, I really agree with you, and partly because I have a teenager at home, and they learn so much from TikTok. They are constantly, so it's not only the negative challenges. She obviously comes home and tells me all the dumb things that people tried to do because of the challenge at her school, but it's also a new way of learning for them. They like that instant, they like it relevant. And I've talked about, how do we put messaging out there? How do we work with kids, because they are so used to getting this? Even if you try to hide it from them, they're figuring out ways to get that instant message, and they love when it connects and they can see that connection. Because I'll be honest, anytime I want to do something in the kitchen or whatever, I'm always like, Nana, how do you do this? And she's like, well, I saw this on TikTok, and or we can clean the dishes this way, or we can do this way. And they learn a lot of things from TikTok. A lot of bad things, but there's a lot of productive things. And I noticed that it just clicks for them when they have that relevancy. They can take what they learned in just a few seconds and apply it to something. So I like that applied knowledge. I think there's just ways we got to figure out how we're going to use TikTok and other social media platforms to make sure they're doing good in this world.
Yeah. But
I just
Serena,
thought that's interesting.
Serena, to your point, I mean, it ends up taking a lot of your time, right?
To address the destructive behavior that comes from it, the negative aspect of it, it does take up a lot of the time, because you really have to do that investigative piece especially if you're going to go, and really give those consequences for the due consequences for the behavior. You really have to do that. But I agree with what Amy's saying. I mean, the kids do, they, for whatever reason, I mean, there's something about it for it to be such a huge platform, right? You can get anything and everything. And I've seen several videos on there that I even like as an educator that teaches math and science. I'm thinking, oh, this is really cool. And one of the things we did here to kind of steer kids in a better direction is we allowed them to create a TikTok video and do something that was more positive trending. So we created this assignment, a lesson where, okay, this is what's trending. We talked about the negative stuff. We talked about how it goes against our Hall framework, a sense of belonging, a sense of responsibility. Now let's what do we want to see trending and how can we get that out there? So we let kids create videos and we put that out there just within our own school community and share. So, it's you got to turn it around to a positive way, but it does. I just wish that there was a way where kids obviously want to be heard. They want to feel, they want to be out there. They only do this because they know they can post it and get likes and get attention. If they wouldn't do it if they couldn't post it and nobody saw it, it wouldn't be as exciting to them. So I think there's a deeper meaning behind it all, a deeper level of, hey, I'm here, see me, let me do something, which I think goes back to what Ken and you were saying, that school's got to be more engaging. There's got to be something there for them to want to be in class. So, it's just one of those things. I don't know. It's going to be a beast, I think, for the next couple of years. We just got to learn how to tame the beast. I don't have any context on this. It's not in my past experience.
Well,
Serena, you definitely, the second time you passed by that question, you started with, well, this is what we're doing to compensate for that. So that was definitely a glass half full approach that hopefully will compensate for the downside. With the time we have left, is there another question there anybody would like to approach? I know they're all interrelated.
Well, actually, Robert, I was going to ask Jorge, have you guys had discussions on campus, maybe in the most general sense, about things that you want to stop doing versus things that you want to do, or in the context of this discussion about what kids do in the current pathway of education? Has that come up for you?
Could you repeat that?
Are you at IPA, have there been conversations about things that you might want to stop doing that have been done for a long time, and with maybe a focus on things that you do want to do?
Definitely all the time. I think one example would be, and it's a simple example, is semester exams, right? So I know this, like mentioned in the discussion before, like I feel like we are like caught between two worlds, that we're trying to adhere to two groups of standards, right? Like, the idea of, having students sit down for 3 hours for a semester exam, right? I mean, what does that prove? I mean, does it really prepare them for college? I mean, just things like that. I mean, we're constantly looking at the way we do things and having conversations about what is it really doing for our students and how are we preparing them, for the world. And I know when I read this second chapter, as I haven't read ahead. I'm just reading it chapter by chapter. I came across two questions that I thought to myself. I think this is the first year where I actually have both feet in this world of education. So I maybe you guys have the answer to these questions, but one question that popped up in my head was, how much do we share with parents and students about what's happening, about this problem, right? Because I know, for example, at IPA, we are moving away from the IB and we've adopted design thinking in hopes of, taking care of this problem or this issue. But how much do our students and our families know about how real and how complex this problem is, right? That's my first question. Then my second question that popped up is, what about ourselves as educators, right? Have we taken accounting of these currencies, right? Of these, like what do we possess and how much of it do we possess? I grew up with the formula, the old formula, and it's true. It's not working. It's failed. You know, it doesn't work. And for me, I was always told that, you get ahead or you're successful based on your merit, right? Based on your work ethic, based on the person that you are. But then here, I now have to share with my students that it's also about relationships, right? And then, but when you were in high school, you learned about the old boys network in Hawaii, and the fact that there are all these relationships. So just lots of ideas that are conflicting, and you see the importance, but it's just interesting. And that's all
Wow.
I have.
Wow, those are two very, very big questions that popped up, especially the one for me about parents. How much do they actually know what all the complexities are? Any thoughts from others about those questions?
I'm also a
Jorge?
little, oh, sorry. No,
No, go
please
ahead,
take it
go
away.
ahead.
No, you got it.
Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute there, click on it, but Jorge, I thought that was really deep. So did you're done, I'm like, that's deep. In public school, I would say that our parents know this. Well, especially the kids in the group of kids I've worked with over the years, they do realize it. They make comments all the time. They don't know how to communicate that they understand this, but they tell us all the time too. I mean, the kids' parents that we have, this is, second generation, third generation for me being out there, but they'll say like, oh yeah, I didn't learn anything in school. None of it really mattered. I didn't need any of that. They make these comments all the time about why do we learn these things, or I didn't care about it in high school, or so I think like in some ways they understand that we're not preparing them, but they don't know how to communicate.
Reading that in a way is really powerful.
Terrific. Josh, how many more minutes do we have?
We're actually okay. It's only 4:37. So we've still got about 5 more minutes in the small group, and then a few minutes at the end when we come back to large group to have a synthesis moment.
So this team is awesome. We went through what we learned. We went through the 4 questions, and everybody has a question that they will respond to and
Okay.
share in the big group. But here's the other one that we wanted to talk about was, did you discuss what kind of questions you'd like to ask Stephanie?
Stephanie.
Yes.
No-
I know Jillian had a few questions.
No, that was not happening in the other group. They actually went deep on one question, and then Jorge kind of blew it out of the water with a related question. So I don't know that they're going to pull back from that. So I'm going to leave them alone because they've gone deep on that. So, but yeah.
Okay, but I think if people have some questions, you want to share it now, because I think it's kind of to get everybody else to just kind of think about what would we want to ask, Stephanie Malia Kraus, and help each other with some ideas, since we have the time, since you guys were so awesome in your other discussion.
I'm super game to kind of field questions that you want to ask her. I know her
Yes.
really well, and I know a lot about her process and writing the book now. So if you want to run them by me, I'm happy to kind of give you feedback on the question or see how it lands. Jillian, you have questions that you want to ask Stephanie Malia?
Well, one of the things that had come out of my conversation with my book buddy was just like this like general understanding of like the impact of automation on our own critical thinking skills and our students' decision making skills and a better understanding of really like what she thinks is the right path forward in accepting automation as an inevitability and maybe helping reframe for ourselves as educators and then also for our students that like this isn't necessarily like a loss of something, but rather an opportunity to shift how we behave in like the broader context of the world around us. But I
You
think the
know-
question I'd really love to ask her is how does automation affect critical thinking skills?
So Jillian, that is absolutely a fantastic question to ask her. You know, two things. One is I've been paying attention to this since way back when I first saw Most Likely to Succeed. And it seemed like in the beginning, there was a lot of worry that automation was going to, take all the jobs away, and then the conversation kind of leveled out. And then there were reasonable discussions about the extent to which humans and automation were going to actually mix with each other. And then even this morning in the New York Times, there was a new op-ed that was written that said, wake up, everybody, automation is going to be way worse than we thought. And it's this guy who's traveling to Europe and back, and almost everywhere he went, checking in at the airport, getting a meal at a restaurant, there were no humans present, nowhere. And he discovered that his bags, after he checked in his bags all by himself, were actually put on the plane by robots, that all those humans had been replaced. So this is a fantastic question to ask her because it's a huge part of her research. And Jillian, the book is only like that thick, right? It's only 3/4 of an inch thick, but the research that went into it and the number of times that she had to revise it because of COVID, it's really remarkable. So that would be a great question to lead with. That would be awesome. Already looking forward to the second for that. That's great.
I can just share a couple of experiences I had over the break last week. I was traveling to the East Coast to visit my mom back in Georgia. And of course, going through several airports and whatnot for my connections. Stopped into one place, I think it was like one of those Hudson News stands or whatever,
Yep.
and went in to get something to drink. And I didn't see anybody in the storefront, but there were two people sitting outside the store. And there were like these little gates there. And I'd never seen this before, so it was new to me. So I had to ask, say, just put your card into the slot. And I did. And after a while, the gate opened. And I said, okay, I'll go and get what I need and walk out. I'm looking for the register and ask them, do I check out? Say, nope, you're good. Just walk out. Said, do I pay? Say, nope, it's going to scan it while you walk out. I'm like, okay, that was new for me. Another one was when I was in a clothing store and getting a few t-shirts and whatnot. And I brought my items up to the counter. And as they do, they start folding all of the clothes and getting ready to put them in the bag. So while they're folding the clothes, I'm waiting for them to start scanning everything. And he folded the last one and he told me the total. I'm like, are you going to scan any of them? Say, no, there's a little metal piece in the tag that actually scans as we're folding. The one thing he did say is that, it works fine, as long as we're here together, but sometimes it'll pick up tags at the other register. So we have to be careful to double check. So there's always those little flaws there.
Yeah.
But just wanted to share that because those were new experiences for me. I guess I had been shut in with COVID for so long. I hadn't been out there to experience those things. But yeah, just kind of to the point of what we're already discussing.
Yeah, that's great, Barry. And again, Jillian, the opportunity to talk to Stephanie Malia about the research that she did. And my kind of related question is, how do we have a reasonable and informed discussion about this at the school administrative level, where it doesn't turn into kind of fearful or fear mongering or anything like that? And what is it that we have to do as school leaders going forward? So I think there's almost a whole hour's discussion with Stephanie Malia around this alone. I think it's a great start. And I think we'll have the next 2 weeks to really think about what those things are. So, and my timer is going off now. So if we want to stay on track, I'm going to leave this group and then I'm going to end the whole thing for people and I'll note. Okay, so I'll be back. Or I won't be back. I'll see you back in the main room. Yep.
In the main
Jillian, that process that we went through when in my years as a teacher, that was something that I worked really hard to perfect, was the opportunity for kids. We often talk about Socratic discussion, but I would do variations of it where it would be like, ask the question and let me react to the nature of the question. And we would end up having whole discussions about the questions, in addition to discussions about what the question was actually probing towards, right?
I feel like the greatest thing I could have done for my students was have gone back in time and majored in philosophy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, looks like
I just have to say, Akash, that was like, I've never seen anybody finish a statement with a millisecond to go and tied it in a bow like that. That was pretty amazing.
Shoot, I wasn't there to see it. Gosh, bummers. Okay, so we have, it's 4:45. I think we're still okay on time. So we've got just a couple of minutes to get a synthesis from the two groups. So Robert, if your group wants to go first, I was with you for a while, and then we'll have Anne's group go second.
Well, I'm going to echo what Ken said towards the end, is rabbit hole. We were definitely starting to dig caverns and craters in our conversation. So it was getting pretty deep, but I don't want to speak for the group. If somebody wants to do a quick synthesis of where we were.
Yeah, who's it going to be? Amy, Serena, Ken, Jorge, Kosh. Here we go.
But if they're still preparing, our group
You
is
guys want
ready.
to go? Okay, all
Yeah,
right. We'll
let's
let them
just do it.
prepare
We
for
have-
another
We
minute.
got it all set up. Okay, so
Okay.
we're gonna start with Jess. We're just gonna
Oh.
go through some of the answers to the questions that we had in our discussion. And then, try to pull it all together at the end. So Jess,
Yeah.
why don't you start?
Got about 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll go very fast. We were just talking about what we should be doing in our classrooms and like what kind of instruction we should be doing. And it's more about the problem solving and the collaboration and the critical thinking. It's less about adapting them to AI. I do think that it's just very innate. And I just use the example that I watch like my young kids play, and he sets up a library and he goes, this is the face scanner. Asher, scan your face, and like grab books. And so it's not that we really need to dig deep into getting them adjusted to the technology always advancing. But I do think that they need those skills of problem solving, teamwork, collaboration, and just understanding that there is going to be a better way and not such a narcissistic view. Because I do think that this generation has that.
That's awesome.
Thank you. So then Jillian.
So one of the things that we talked about, like what would we do less of in order to do more of to get us ready for what Jess just talked about and like the life that our students will be living. When we discussed that, like, it'd be really great to do a whole lot less standardized testing and assessing of these skills that like realistically and according to the book, like students won't necessarily need to access on a daily basis, and instead prioritizing like the teaching of the skills that Jess just talked about, those Castle competencies, and like really impressing upon them that like their executive functioning skills and their ability to like think quickly on their feet and stay strong decision makers in a world that's becoming heavily automatic is a really important thing. And that like just doesn't show up on the tests that we give our kids. So we'd like to do less test prep and more instruction on those executive functioning skills.
And I see an opportunity to jump to the other group. Jorge was actually talking about this, and so was Kosh, and so was Ken. Jorge, just a few seconds to kind of relate to what conversations are happening at IPA about semester tests and that sort of thing.
I guess the rabbit holes that we're going down dealt with contradictions that exist in this world that we live in with education, and just like trying to adhere to, I guess, both groups. Or so one example would be like semester exams, right? So at IPA we would have semester exams, and the whole rationale behind that was to prepare them for college. But does it really do that? And really just looking at the things that we do and seeing which ones we have to do less of or take away, just to make sure we're actually taking into account what the student needs and how to prepare them. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice connection between the two groups. Ken, do you want to add into any, you raised this issue first off in our small group. You want to, anything to contribute to that, or?
I think it's just the idea that, what does the high school diploma mean anything anymore? And, in some respects, yes. I mean, there's definitely kids that graduate from high school that are just awesome, ready to go. But even within a school to school, the high school diploma means so many different things. And yet, there's so many people that don't really see the value of the high school diploma, but yet us in education, we value it, or not us, but just you have these certain groups that are just hold it as such a high regard and won't stray from it, yet everybody's pointing to it and saying, look at how many flaws that we see. And I think that's something to reduce, is to figure out, instead of valuing the credit hours and the credits, to go more towards the demonstration of the competencies.
And Ken, I will say here that you have created an opportunity when Stephanie Malia is with us in 2 weeks to ask her to reflect on that, because it is part of what she writes about, is the way we've been doing things, and the transcript as we know it, the high school diploma as we know it, is changing in its meaning. So it'd be awesome if you were to come at it in the form of a question with her. I think that would be terrific. And Jillian, when I was with their small group, they're already talking about asking her about automation and where are we now in automation, and what's the relationship between things that are happening in automation and things we're doing in the education sphere. So that would be great.
Okay, so
We're
moving
at-
on.
Maybe one more, Ann, because we're at 4:51. So we gotta.
Okay, so we can let the other group go and talk about jobs of the future and preparation for the job market. Anybody else want to chime in? If not, 1, 2, 3. Okay, Barry, hit it.
Speaking of
no
jobs,
pressure.
Barry, since you were talking about automation, right?
Right.
Or lack
Well,
of. Yeah.
the question number 3 was asking to explain how the education sector is or is not responding to, I'm sorry. That's the
Preparing our
point.
kids. Yeah.
Yes. And my point was that I feel that we are responding, particularly here at Castlewood in our academy structure. We work closely with our industry partners within our academies to ask them what is it that they need our students to graduate with to be successful on their jobs. And as I was saying in the group, a lot of times you expect to hear the typical arithmetic, reading, writing, and arithmetic and things of that nature. But that's not what they're telling us. And that's not to say that those things aren't important. But what are important, the things that are important, are those soft skills. And, it touched a lot in the movie, of course. But those soft skills like communication, collaboration, critical thinking, having that growth mindset, things that will transcend any job, no matter what job they're on. So they're not being pigeonholed into a certain skill, but the skills they're learning will allow them to expand into any job. So in short, yeah, we are responding. It may not be as rapidly as we'd like, but we are responding to that.
That's great, Barry. And I think, Anne, as we bring this part to a close here, Barry, I was a teacher for 17 years, but for the last 7 years, I've been working retail at Apple here at Ala Moana Center. You'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see the changes that are coming at us and coming at retail for employees, like a freight train. COVID shifted everything to online sales, and a lot of that is handled automatically, right? So the value of, and also just thinking about, who gets hired at Apple, and the high school transcript is not material. The college degree is not material. It's your ability to create a relationship with somebody in a speedy situation, in a speed dating kind of situation, and build rapport with them very, very quickly. So it's just so fascinating, and we're in the middle of it. Yeah. So.
And you know what? Here's the future thing. You got to get somebody who can deal with old folks and the kupuna to actually start to get them to get their, how do you hook up my printer using the computer without wires? It's sitting here, just to let you know, You can help me later. Okay, got it. Thank you.
So this is why all the old people who come into the Ala Moana store gravitate to moi. They want to talk to Josh because Josh is patient, and that's all they want. So how do you hire for patience? How do you know, right? What, yeah, and they always say, I don't want to deal with these young kids. They're not patient. And so they all come to me. Oh my God. Anyway, I don't want to get started.
Okay, but
Okay.
At one point, it was the 12 o'clock on the VCRs to try to get rid of, you know.
Exactly. Okay, so we're actually, let me get back to the screen here. Okay, so we're actually going into our break. Yay. So we're going to take maybe 4 to 5 minutes if you can set your clock. And then when we come back, we're going to be going into the section that I'm going to lead about what the innovation playlist is all about. So we will see you in 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, everybody, we're gonna start again. It's top of the hour. Okay, fantastic. I'm gonna share my screen again here. Make sure I've got the sound shared. Here and here. Here. Okay. Everybody can still see the screen okay? All good? Okay, awesome. Okay, so this 30-minute section, I'm gonna absolutely curb my tendency to blather. I'm gonna be 100% spot on here so we can get through it because we have a short film to watch during this section. So you recall that in your school impact project form, that there is a section there that asks you to consider the 5 themes that are in what's called the innovation playlist. So that's mobilize your community, student-driven learning, authentic, real world challenges, authentic assessments, and caring and connected communities. So as your projects move forward, we're wanting you to kind of have an eye in the direction of those 5 themes and to think about how your project connects to those themes and helps move those ideas forward. So what we wanted to do for this section here was to just gain a little bit of an understanding of what the innovation playlist is all about. And I'm going to walk you through that. Okay, so the 2 questions on the table is, what was its genesis? Why leverage the playlists in your school impact project? And really, what is whatschoolcouldbe.org? Okay, so what was its genesis? So Ted Dintersmith, who's a retired venture capitalist out of Rhode Island, way back in 2013, after he retired, began poking around in his kids' education and was pretty appalled at what he found. And very long story short, he decided to make a film with Greg Whiteley, the amazing director, and that film is most likely to succeed. And I think just everybody has in our cohort here has actually seen the film. So it debuted at the Sundance Film Festival in the fall of 2015, and that's shortly after that is when I saw it for the first time. Subsequently, the film was seen at over 12,000 school and community screenings worldwide and nearly 1 million times in China, where it was pirated and put onto Tencent, which is China's version of YouTube. And before Ted and his team could get it pulled down, it recorded over 1 million views there. And we discovered that China was extremely interested in project-based learning, which continues to this day. It's also been seen by in every prefecture in Japan. Somebody that I know really well, her name is Emi Takemura. She's remarkable. So that was the beginning of it. After Ted debuted the film, he went on a 50-state tour. He was on the road for almost all of the 295 days out of that year. He traveled to every state, every corner of every state, and he finished that 50-state tour in the 50th state here in Hawaii. And I was the person that actually curated that visit. He thought nothing was happening in Hawaii. He was sick and tired of traveling. He wanted one day. I kept him for 6 days and took him to 3 islands and multiple schools, public, private, and charter. And we blew him out of the water with some of the remarkable things that were happening in this state. Subsequent to that, he wrote his book, What School Could Be, which tells the story of that journey around the country. And I'm actually going to show you now the trailer. It's 1 minute and 18 seconds long for the book. I think it's the only time I've ever seen a trailer for a book, but here it is. Volume okay?
Attention passengers traveling on United Airlines Flight 687 to Chicago. Please proceed to gate 61. Your flight is now boarding.
Okay, awesome. So once he returns from the 50 state tour, he spends the next year writing this book, What School Could Be. And then, oops, let me get to the next slide. And as a result of What School Could Be, and actually I'm going to come out of screen share here because I'm going to share something a little bit different. I'm actually going to show you whatschoolcouldbe.org. So give me one sec to reorient. Oh, sorry, it's going to take a second. Arg. Okay, stand by. Okay. So very long story short, out of What School Could Be came the idea for the innovation playlist. It was a riff at the time on emerging technologies like Apple Music and Spotify, that humans, maybe regrettably, were no longer listening to albums in the way that they were originally constructed with a series of songs, that they were starting to mix and match those songs into playlists. And the core idea behind the innovation playlist was that you could take an idea and move it into your playlist and add it to another idea and add it to another idea, depending on the place and the culture and the context of your particular school community. It was definitely the antithesis of one size fits all. Again, long story short, over years of presenting the innovation playlist to communities and conferences around the country, all of this was brought together under one umbrella, which is whatschoolcouldbe.org. And at the same time that whatschoolcouldbe.org was built, there was also the building of the community, the What School Could Be community, which you're a part of. Your course is being held on the What School Could Be community. So whether it's the What School Could Be app or community.whatschoolcouldbe.org, those two are together. And the idea is you have a big resource library and you got a big community of people. And by the way, I'll just let you know that last week or Monday, sorry, day before yesterday, we reached 3,000 people on the platform. That's 3,000 educators and education leaders are actually part of the What School Could Be community. And your course is just one part of that, right? So all of that came together, and here's the What School Could Be site. So if you scroll down the What School Could Be site, there's a short video from TED saying this was actually filmed during COVID. Why not innovate during a pandemic? What better time to innovate during a pandemic? And there was a lot of innovation going on. Then there's joining the What School Could Be community. There's a number of Hawaii people in that film there. There's the core idea of small steps lead to big change. There's a wonderful video with Sir Ken Robinson explaining the innovation playlist, and tragically he died last year of complications from pancreatic cancer. And now his daughter, Kate, is carrying on the work, which is absolutely fantastic. And then there's the innovation playlists. Now, before I go there, below that is drawing on best practices, which is the What School Could Be book. And then later, we're going to see my film, which is 47 minutes long, called The Innovation Playlist. You've already seen one section of that that features 20% time at Serena School. We'll come back to that later, but that's on the homepage as well. So if you're looking at the Innovation Playlist, you can see that you can, and let me just move you guys down to the bottom here so I can scroll. So there is mobilize, the 5 themes: mobilize your community, student-driven learning, real-world challenges, authentic assessments, and caring and connected communities. If you click on any one of those, it will take you into the full innovation playlist. And there's a really significant amount of content that's been generated by a team that Ted has been working with in Los Angeles for some time now. So that's the very brief backstory of how we got to the innovation playlist. And what we're going to do now is we're actually going to watch the main film that's at Caring and Connected Communities. So we know that some of you are looking at SEL, so this is really going to come home. And so we're going to play this main film here. So give me a second. I'm going to come back to my slide deck. One sec. So that's where we're going to play the film. And we're going to share there and here. And I'm going to present. Okay, so here we go. with caring and connected communities at the innovation playlist. Again, you're keeping in mind as you're developing your school impact project, to what extent does your project help develop caring and connected communities on your campus and in your greater school community?
For a traditional district that's struggling right now, I think my biggest piece of advice would be starting with the social emotional support for students. In Virginia, they released the responsive return plan. And one of the very first things that is in the plan is that when students come back to school, it is not about assessing or anything. It's about doing the social emotional work to make sure that our students are supported and have the resources that they need.
Our young people are growing up in a time of profound crisis. Their world and their futures are unraveling right in front of them. And so the question is, what must we do as adults, as teachers, as parents, as caring adults, to support young people in this time of profound crisis in their lives?
We should always be checking to make sure the kids are okay and that everybody is cared for and safe psychologically, emotionally, and physically. This has now become a priority because it's such an extreme situation. But I think what it's really pointing out is this is something we always should have been doing and should be doing. I can speak in the community I work in. We have food insecurity, huge, job insecurity, money insecurity. Will we be able to continue to rent this apartment? I think people who maybe never would have experienced any of those things before are experiencing them now. And so I think those types of traumas and scarcities are really coming to the forefront. If you are worried about your family, about your health, about where you're living, about what you're eating, where you're going, your friends, learning becomes tough. Accessing that part of your brain, accessing higher order thinking, it becomes hard when all of these other things are on your mind and something you're worried about. And so I think this has really made it understandable for a ton of people how hard it is to kind of focus without feeling that safety and that care. Learning is enhanced with SEL. The ability to gain information, access information, and to critically think needs a layer of social emotional learning underneath it for it to be effective. And so oftentimes, even teachers I work with will question, oh, we have to talk about feelings or we have to talk about this and that. But kids have big feelings and they don't know yet what to do with them. The way that we teach a kid to read, if a kid can't read, we don't say, well, read better. We break it down and teach them. If a kid can't control their anger, or if a kid has trouble showing empathy, we don't just say, do it better. But we do say that often. We just say, like, fix it. But oftentimes kids don't have the tools. They don't know. They don't understand what that entails. We often don't even think about the steps we take to control our anger or to how we use our executive functioning. And so if we stop and think how we got there, we learned, we were taught, and so we have to do the same.
I know for a fact as a math teacher, I got the results I got because I had the relationships with the kids. Like the first day of class was not a test, not a quiz, nothing. It was tell me your best math experience, your worst math experience, and what I can do to help. And we sat there and talked about how students had never passed a math class in their life. And I told them, well, we're going to get in this together and I'm going to be the one that's going to support you through this.
If you don't have the skills to persevere, to ask for help, to understand that you might fail before you get it, that class is going to be a whole lot harder. And you might see kids shutting down. You might see kids acting out, goofing off. All these different behaviors often come from not knowing how to navigate some part of social emotional learning.
The first and most important piece, according to our research, is really the relations that we develop with our students.
When school buildings abruptly closed down over the course of the spring, a lot of schools noticed that 20, 30, even 40% of students were not fully connected or engaged with what was going on in the school. So why was that? Well, there weren't existing structures in the school where adults knew particular students and families. At the same time, schools in the Big Picture Learning Network that already had an advisory, that already had advisors and individualized learning plans, were seeing 90, 95% of students on a daily basis logging in, connecting over video chat to their advisory. Well, why was that? Well, they wanted to see each other. They wanted to see their advisor. Their advisor knew them and their family. If they didn't turn up, they were going to get checked in on. And so I think that that kind of connectedness, that kind of relationship building is vitally important to make sure that young people are able to stay connected.
Before they can even teach, the morning meetings have taken on a whole new level of importance in this virtual world. It is, do I have eyes on you? Do I see you? Are you okay? Is your family okay? What'd you guys do? How are you doing? All these things that we're now asking about that we don't think about when we have to jump right to our math lesson or ELA or reading this text or that.
Especially in times when school buildings are closed, advisory is a vitally important structure to make sure that educators stay closely connected with young people and their families. If you don't know what's going on in their lives at home, then how can you possibly help them learn?
Get to know each other. I think the more they know about your favorite things too is really fun for kids. And then once you know their hobbies, their interests, their goals, you incorporate that into the lessons. A basic thing is, do you greet the kids in the morning? How do you greet them? And I mean like individually, one at a time. How well do you know them? You need to ask, brothers and sisters, do you have any pets? What's your favorite thing to do? The more you know about the kids and let them tell their stories, kids love to talk. So listen.
I did a silly little trick. I would open up my Zoom call discussions early. I wouldn't do the wait for me, and I would just turn my camera off, and it really just warmed my heart. The discussion was scheduled for 8:30, and I had kids at 7:45 waiting at Zoom just for someone to show up to talk. And I just let them, and they would be laughing, they would be dancing, they would say, listen to this song I just heard. They need to talk to each other. And also sometimes it would get kind of silly, and I thought I probably should close this down, except I sensed the need for them to be silly together on Zoom. And so I just let that happen, and I think I'll continue to do that. Just let them be together, accomplishing nothing but connecting to each other.
I even created weekly social work drop-in sessions where we just kind of had a Google Hangout, and any kids could come in. And the amount of kids that came just to do show and tell, to play games, to say hi, to be in community, it was so nice to see.
We need to make SLCs, we need to make student learning communities with our students. So we don't want pockets of students always just working by themselves, right? Or attending a synchronous lesson for 30 minutes and then just be left there. So we're trying now to create those student learning communities so that they can do consultancy protocols and pitches to students and just communicate, which of course also helps the real social nature of middle school students, huh?
A concept that one of our teachers did was belongingness buddies, where each student was paired with another buddy that they would do regular texts and check-ins and maybe do schoolwork together over Zoom. And that has been one way to keep students connected. There are teachers who have group roles on Zoom so that students, like one student is a host, another one is a coach, another one is, the note taker, just so that you can keep that engagement and keep students active.
We started a mentoring program in Hopewell where we're asking any parents who feel like their students really need that extra support, that social-emotional support, to really sign up up to have an adult within our division mentor them. And it can be anyone from, some of our office staff to our cafeteria workers to teachers. And so that has been a pilot program this summer, and it's definitely very successful so far. Our students are really excited because they want that extra support. They want that connection, those relationships.
I think whenever possible, if teachers can keep electives and clubs, whether it's Model United Nations or some sort of theater group, but we've got to keep the fun in school. We just can't make the online learning just be about academics. So how can we keep some of the routine but fun things that happen in school also happening online? And then lastly, I've loved reading and writing all my life. So I love the idea of establishing reading groups and writing groups that students self-select into, and they can write and get feedback on their writing and read and discuss and all those beautiful things. They can easily turn that content and writing into an online exhibition. So like I envision an online open mic night called like Pandemic Poetry, or I don't know, y'all can think of what you want to call it, but where students perform spoken word and just share their experiences. So there are just so many ways to keep the joy in learning. And I think, we've got to get out of this like, oh, this is horrible for students. Okay, how we are in this situation, how do we make it enjoyable for students? How do we keep this joy of learning?
We started our school year last year completely different. Our teachers weren't allowed to do rules, tests, or quizzes the first week of school. Nothing related. And they had to play games with their kids, get to know you activities. The most noise I've ever heard in a school building was during that first week. And students and teachers said 100% they felt so much better about entering the school year from that place because they really had opportunities to play. And I hate to say it like that because it sounds very simple, but when you get to play with your peers a game, and some of the kids that might have been more reserved got the opportunity to kind of step up and say something, or they were encouraged by their peers on the first day of school to be a member of this community, it changes the way that things happen.
Death is a part of our conversation right now. A lot of people are dying and a lot of people are scared of dying. We're also in a world where we can't use the social traditions we use to grieve. We can't go to a funeral. We can't really sit together in a home or do the things we typically would to feel that sense of closure. And so we need to be creative, and we need to allow for the conversation. We don't need to force people to talk about it, but leaving the door open and acknowledging, especially as the adults in the room. And so if you have those fears and worries, you are safe to talk about it here. You are safe to ask questions here, especially if I don't have the answer. It's still okay to ask that question. We'll find it, we'll talk about it, we'll figure it out. And I think that is going to lend to a sense of safety that is so hard to provide right now when we're so far from each other.
The hero's journey narrative is one we talk about every single day. And we use the identity of a hero versus a victim. And so we say, okay, we're in a really hard situation. How can we deal with this heroically instead of becoming victims to it? So what can we do to make life better for someone else? And that, I think, really helped. They already had that identity of, we're not victims, we're heroes. We can get through this. It's hard, but we can get through this. This is part of my hero's journey. This pandemic is part of my story. And what am I going to tell my grandchildren about it? So I think, once again, it's that storytelling, that narrative that I think is so crucial for human communities, and human relationships are central to learning.
So when we talk about deeper learning, and we're talking about all of the things that students need to master, right? All of these competencies. When you look at the actual deeper learning competencies, so many of them are social emotional competencies, right? Collaboration, academic mindsets, their beliefs in that their efforts can actually make them better as students, right? That they belong in this community. That's all part of social emotional learning. And so if we are really to be successful in creating these environments and creating these learning experiences that make students feel like they're really a part of the work, that they are part of a community, then we need to be cultivating this sense of understanding themselves, the sense of understanding their community, the sense of understanding how do they navigate this world that they are in order to help them to do the real world work that we want them to do. Because that's where the work is, right? It's about how we work as individuals and a community. And so students need a lot of support in explicit social emotional learning, and to know that those are the skills that we value, so that they can feel like they're actually doing something, not only to be a better student, but to be a better human.
When you segment out SEL, social and emotional learning, and you don't make that a part of what it means to be a graduate of your institution, or how you prepare people to be adults or to be prepared for work, you do a huge disservice to your population. And so anything that you create, you have to have that as core framework and skills, because the skills of collaboration, the skills of critique, the skills of being a good human being are what they need in a 21st century economy and in a 21st century world.
Technology is just a tool. It's a wonderful tool. We love it. We depend on it. But it really is human relationship that matters even when we're separated. So if teachers and families can think about how to maintain the feeling of deep human connection even separated, I think that's really important.
And that engagement starts with social emotional learning. How are we going in and engaging students and families with check-ins and making it a non-threatening environment? Now I gotta learn on a Chromebook. No, we're just trying to do a face call. Let me look at you. Let me talk to you. Build that relationship, and then students and families may be more likely to engage.
Really connecting on a personal level is really important, and then reaching out to the rest of the school team to be like, here's the plan for these families. How can we virtually support with one-on-one check-ins, one-on-one sessions, having a point person that reaches out so that family doesn't receive 15 calls through the 3 different kids. So one of the ways to really coordinate point of contact, especially in the higher grades, is to have advisories, or essentially homeroom teachers, a point person for those kids. One of the biggest struggles kids have as adults is just uncertainty and unexpectedness. And so if you walk into this knowing in 2 weeks, in 2 months, we may have to come back to a digital learning, it's not so scary because it's put out there and it's understood. And so you can also plan with the families. What are you going to put into place in case we do have to go back to digital learning? What do you need from us? How can we set everyone up for success, knowing we want to be in school, but there is the likelihood we have to be back to digital learning?
Another thing we're starting is a hotline for parents in the fall, where we're going to have teachers and different people, specialists, coaches, to be on call in the evenings for the parents who may not have access to get the support that they need during the school day. So we're going to have, the ability for them to contact us via email, on Google Meet, in chat, on Facebook Live, or any chats online. So just giving them so many different pathways to say, okay, even when I come home from a long day at work, I know that I can still feel supported. Even when I'm, sick or trying to take care.
Apologies. I'm not sure why it skipped, but I can take care of it because I can just go forward right here.
Be there for myself as well, so that I can pour even more into others. And we as educators don't often give ourselves permission to feel and to really have needs. And now more than ever, everyone is affected. Our families, our co-workers, our administrators, everyone needs more love and self-care and grace and faith.
The core kind of tenet right now of how best to respond as an educator is, whatever you're doing, don't do it alone. Buddy up, team up, you know, even if it's a buddy on the internet, you know, that you Skype with or whatever, try your ideas out. You know, you don't have to be in the same room necessarily, but by no means should we be, any of us, trying to go it alone, which is, by the way, our inclination as educators.
It's an amazing silver lining of this whole thing is that all of a sudden we don't have to drive anywhere to meet with anybody, and we've gotten very comfortable with it. So as a teacher, is this not a moment to reach out to somebody who's perhaps in your complex or your district, but not at your school, and to say, what are you doing? What are the steps that you're taking that are a little different than you were doing before? And how could I possibly do those same steps or take those same steps? And by the way, as we do that, could we just sort of stay in touch with each other? Could we coach each other? Could we help each other and sponsor each other, mentor each other, and guide each other as we go through it? And so I think that this moment, this pandemic moment, is very ripe for these kinds of informal networks to pop up. And shoot, what's the end result of that going to be is that we all feel a little bit more like a community, and that we're going to survive this pandemic, and we're going to be resilient through this pandemic because we know each other, we're talking to each other, and we're sharing each other's ideas. Goodness, I'd forgotten I was actually in that film. Sorry, let's move beyond that. Okay, so again, we wanted to answer the question, what was the genesis of the innovation playlist? That's just one film out of the 5 main films. And then there's a ton of other content in each of those playlists that are named by the 5 themes that are there. And we're really looking forward to how you might engage with that content to leverage your school impact project to the place that you really want it to be. And you can access it anytime you want at whatschoolcouldbe.org. Okay, so I'm gonna move to the next slide. And I think Anne and Robert, we're actually ready just to transition to this part. And we're actually gonna keep the slide up, but we're going to have, everybody's gonna get 2 minutes, well, more or less. And I think judging by the time, and actually we're okay, we're at 5:33. We might be okay, that you've got 2 minutes, each of you, to kind of give us an elevator pitch about your school impact project. And I think we actually have the time for you to possibly address all 5 of the questions here, the bullets, and the themes that are put in blue. So Anne, I'm gonna turn it over to you and Robert to organize this part. You're muted, Anne.
Since we have such a strict timeline, let's go in alphabetical order, okay? So we're gonna start with Ken. And the purpose of all of this is, somebody had asked me, do you have a list of all of the different projects that people are thinking about? So just know that whatever you share today may be influenced by some of the videos that you watch in the innovation playlist, and you may change it up a little bit, but this is just a way for everybody to kind of hear what you're thinking about doing, like why you're doing it, what you're gonna do, who you're gonna do it for, and then what you want to see at the outcome, and then who your support team will be with the school and the HIC. And if some of you find that you have like similar kind of projects, you can do like what it said in the caring community piece, hook up with each other and coach each other through it, or talk each other through some of the problems. So that's the purpose of this sharing, okay? So you don't have to go really deep, but just give an idea of what you're doing. So Ken, you ready? I gave you some time just by sharing that. So are you ready?
And we have a clock on screen for you.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure, Ken.
Okay, so the rationale for my project is that Makaha and the surrounding Waianae coast is plagued by the drug problem, the homeless problem going on. So what I wanted to do was sort of have Makaha Elementary as sort of the guiding light for the community to see as a positive, I guess, inspirational anchor point for them to improve the community. And we have a partnership with a farm that's adjacent to the school that has these similar beliefs. And they are trying to improve the community through sustainability, growing, and being self-sustainable. And so what we are envisioning over here is for the students to ask the community what challenges are they facing, and have them look into the solutions that are being in place already and contribute to those solutions, and also possibly even think of their own solutions. I think that involving the farm gives us the numbers. The community already buys into it. Last weekend, there was like a U-Pick. It was close to 200 people came just to come by, socialize, and grab the vegetables that were there. And so, having that anchor point and giving us those ideas for what can be done in the community, and involving the kids and having them present what they have done, I think will truly impact the community for something good.
Jeez.
Oh my.
Okay, sorry. I didn't know
didn't
there was
know
that
that.
alarm, Robert, at the end of the timer. Oh, well. Well done, Ken. Well done.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thank you.
Amy?
Kind of exciting that Ken just shared that, because some of our students are actually part of the UK.
Sorry.
Oh, am I done already? It's
No.
okay.
No.
I'm good. I'm done. Some of our students in our program actually help. They're going to be going back this quarter, and that's part of their focus in giving back to the community is the UPIC program. Anyways, I think I shared mine at the last session, so I feel like I've already kind of gone through it. But basically, my goal will really be focusing on that caring and connected communities and using a process, design thinking. I heard that earlier tonight from one of my colleagues, as a way to create that caring and connected community with our students. And the focus is really for increasing engagement, but having kids be responsible to other groups, other peers, so that maybe that will be enough to bring them in, even when, and we know it, I mean, we see it, we hear it all the time, it's our parents that are keeping our kids home. But in order to break that cycle and be able to address some of the things that we need to with the kids, we have to have something that holds them accountable. And I think sometimes that peer-to-peer connection will be. So my project, I hope, is to focus on reaching out to other, I wanted to go big, I wanted to go to other countries. I was talked down to maybe we'll start with other islands and having them collaborate and do a design thinking process and solving some of the community issues that come up, but not just their own community issues, but have them partner, really focusing on that, building that relationship piece.
Okay.
I yield my time to the speaker.
Okay.
Well done.
You, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
So we have Serena next.
Hang on one sec, Serena, let me reset the clock. Okay, off you go.
Okay, I'm still kind of processing through some thoughts, but I'm kind of going back to what we have done here in the past at Canyon, and how to really kind of improve it and make it even more powerful. And that's part of the PBL projects. We're trying to become a PBL school. So what I would like to see happen is for Canyon to kind of be that model school, and other schools, middle schools specifically, are looking how to implement a project-based learning environment, how to do that and really do it well. And so working with teachers to take it to a deeper level of PBL and innovative instruction, and how to bring that into the classroom. Also kind of looking in different ways, but due to COVID, how to offer virtual exhibitions and how to enhance, like I said, we've done exhibitions before, but it was really just 1 year, and then COVID hit. So we really just had 1 year under our belt, but based on what we went through and what we learned from that first experience, how can we now make this even bigger and better? And the target population, of course, would be the teachers and the students. One of the collaboration teamwork will be working with the Kauai Community Science Center. they've been very successful in really bringing activities and lessons to students during COVID. When there a lot of hands-on activities weren't possible, they were able to really, bring it into a virtual platform. So working with them to kind of help us, know how to kind of navigate in that field. And so the outcome that I'm hoping for is that teachers will truly go to that deeper level of what it means to incorporate PBL instruction and create that PBL culture within their classroom, how to really take that learning, and then students get that ownership and really have an outstanding exhibition.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you, Serena. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay, and the next one is Barry.
All right. Thank you, Serena. That was actually a great segue into my presentation, which is also based on PBL.
Collaborate,
again,
Do it. That's what we want. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So being an academy school, PBL is one of the components that we really want to try to get started here at the school. And it is one of the things that we have in our academic plan. We actually started the year prior to the pandemic, where we actually had training coming in. We had a core group and the train the trainer kind of thing. And that core group went to the academies to train people in the academies. We were all prepared to start with doing, just one per quarter the first year, and try to do collaborative projects the second year, and then do interdisciplinary projects the third year. But when COVID hit, all that went out the window. So this past year, we've restarted that concept. That being the case, I wanted to try to, first of all, start with my academy to try to start with some collaborative ideas beyond what was expected that first year. One of which is the play Anastasia that we're doing in November. All of the disciplines are getting together to do certain parts of creating a playbill, creating sets, and using math, math to create the sets, things of that nature. But beyond that, I'm hoping to take the idea of PBL to the elementary schools to start trying to build a pipeline to prepare them for the academy structure in high school. We say elementary because those are the closest to walk to from Castle right now, but clearly we want to include our middle school or intermediate schools as well. But my hope is to take that outside of Castle High School and spread it out to the feeder schools as well, to start PBL and the academy process with them to create that pipeline.
Awesome.
Good job, Barry.
Well done, Barry. Serena and Barry, wow. Talk about a conversation unfolding. That's awesome.
We shall be chatting.
That's great.
Great. And then we got Jillian next.
Okay, so my project is going to focus in pretty specifically on one grade level. So currently 63% of our third graders are performing at least 2 grade levels below. The vast majority of that is even lower than that. And I know I'm the person that just talked about not wanting to do more assessments, so I promise I'm going somewhere with this. But the reality is that we've got like a ton of kids sitting in our third grade classrooms who had kindergarten classrooms as the last time they had a full normal school year. And they don't know their letter sounds, and they don't know basic sight words, and like they're just really, really struggling, and it's creating this like really big burden on our teachers. And we keep just talking about how like the gaps are big, but the expectations are even higher. And so what I'd really like to work with the third grade team to do is really enhance and improve student instruction through engagement, by making school a place that kids really want to be. And we're going to do that really through like a twofold process of revising our assessments from our box curriculum to be much more authentic and kind of just not give them. We're going to kind of just move away from traditional assessments in third grade and instead have student-driven learning and authentic assessments. So we'll still utilize components of our school-wide box curriculum, because part of the other thing is we also had just done a huge curriculum search and adopted 2 new curriculums, one for reading and one for science. And then the pandemic hit. So our teachers are like working their way through some like really arduous and rigorous curriculum. And it's not that it's a bad curriculum, it's just that it's not what our kids need right now. And it might not be what our kids need ever. And Kamili's kind of flipped in and out of being a project-based learning school and never done it super effectively. And one of the things that I've been given feedback on already from my team, which includes my principal and our learning director, is that it's sometimes hard to do that whole school. So we're going to start really small and have a meaningful impact, hopefully in third grade first, and then go bigger. So my team is primarily the third grade students and teachers.
Oh, great job.
Wow,
Thank you,
great job,
Jillian.
Jillian. Awesome. That's exciting.
And we have Jessica.
Okay, so I am doing it on the social and emotional learning and development in the midst of the pandemic. The rationale and the purpose behind this is to really capture and figure out how are we reaching our distance learners? Okay, so how are we reaching all of our students' SEL needs and development amidst our current systems and structure? So our target population is the distance learners. The outcome would be some qualitative and quantitative data on how did they grow, how was the implementation, and then where was the influence within those families that we're going to connect with in the community. And who will be on my school team is going to be me, social worker, counselor, a couple teachers, hopefully, right? And then also IHGC team to support any of you that want to join us. But basically the purpose is to really create innovative intentionality to support students where they're at behaviorally, emotionally, and socially, so we can finally get them where they need to be academically.
That's
Thank
awesome,
you,
Jess.
Jess.
I'm so glad you got to see that film today. And there's more content at that particular playlist as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we always say on the West Side, you have to touch the heart before you can teach the mind. So thank you, Jess, for continuing that work. And then we have Jorge.
So for my school impact project, I decided to look at something that we are already doing and making some improvements to it. So not overhauling something. And that particular thing is our reflection process. It's something that we have to help students follow our code of conduct. So if our students, for example, break one of our 5 agreements, they go through this process so they could repair the harm that was done to this community. So although, the intent in its original creation, we all know why it was created. In terms of its application, it's the way it's being applied by students and teachers isn't consistent with the origin of why it came about. So my job is to, based on collecting data, figure out what are some minor fixes or tweaks that could be done to this process to make sure it tries to achieve its original intent. So my strategy, of course, would be, making inclusive of like students, parents, faculty, in terms of collecting data and input. My target population would be, of course, students, parents, and teachers. And the outcomes would be at least a first prototype of this reflection process and an opportunity to collect feedback. Who will be on my, again, it would be students, parents, faculty, our student support counselor, and our principal. Yep, that's it.
Awesome.
Terrific.
Thank you, Jorge.
Yeah. And Akash.
Thanks. So yeah, my project is focused mostly on math education within like our high school population on Oahu. So one of the critical issues we've seen is that like engagement, not just in our school but in the state of Hawaii, is pretty low in math classes, and specifically the engagement question related to like finding relevance. And so that's kind of what we're trying to tackle. But we also wanted to tackle it through the lens of like how do we create an empathetic community within a mathematical classroom? And that's kind of like our major focus. So like historically, math has been taught as like a highly technical subject, especially in high school, as it's divided out into like very specific content areas like Algebra 1 all the way through pre-calculus. And so we're kind of trying to tackle that problem to see if you can take it out of that technical aspect and also be able to make it more abstractly relevant as well. And so one of my strategies, we're actually creating a work-based learning opportunity for students to have like a design team. And we're partnering them with some industry professionals and our high school math teachers to then start to really create like a feedback loop and design different types of immersive experiences within a mathematical classroom. So our hopeful outcomes are like a list of a bunch of instructional strategies for in-person and virtual learning, and some student-centered experiential units for each of the levels. And that will hopefully be refined by that feedback loop through that design team and some of our industry professionals.
Wow, that's awesome, Kush. Oh my God, I hated math in elementary, middle, high school, and college. I wish I was back in school and was one of the subjects of this prototype that you're hoping to build. That's awesome.
And we have Denali.
Okay, so that was me asking what everybody's projects were. I've been taking a lot of notes because I think my project needs to change. So thank you for everyone for sharing what they're doing. It helps me think of what I might want to do. My original project was a little more operational and would not have been able to be completed within the school year. So I think that needs to be scrapped. And so I'll be starting again, and hopefully we'll be having something start cooking soon.
Yeah. And that's why this was so important. I think that we wanted everybody to at least get your initial thoughts out there, because once you say it, once you write it, then you go, oh, okay. And then you can still reflect on it. You can go, wow, it's a little too big. I might have to go down, to a doable size. It doesn't have to be a huge, project, but it has to be something that is going to make an impact in your school, changing, how we do our math, or looking at how we're developing project-based learning. But it doesn't have to be like, I'm going to take on the whole school unless you're halfway there, and then we really want to be able to say, we know how we can do something because we need to do it. And this is what we tried to do. And here's what happened. And you know what, good, bad, or otherwise, even if you don't realize your outcomes, you're going to know what you might need to do the next time. And so that's what's really important in the project as you take this journey, is that you're trying something and you're going through the process. And whatever the outcomes are, we're all going to learn something from it. And as an administrator, you never know what's going to be at the end. So you have to think through the process and go, okay, second and third level consequences. I'm not going to go to jail. I'm not going to break the law. I'm not going to break our school policies, but we are going to make a difference for our kids, our teachers, and our community. So thank you very much, everyone, for sharing.
Yeah, that was fantastic. It's really nice to get a picture now. Robert, any thoughts here in this moment? We're actually at 5:53, so we're good. Robert, thoughts now that you've heard all the projects?
Well, I mean, I love the fact that for me, one of the key words always is action. And so what's been great to hear is that these are action-oriented. They're going to have a direct impact on kids, and that you're all thinking about how you're going to collaborate with other people, especially people who have different, viewpoints of what it is you're trying to do. So, for us sitting here as your part of your team, it's just, I'm going to go to sleep tonight, just really happy because things are really coming together. So that's all I would like to say.
That's awesome. Thank you, Robert. Okay, so stand by. Let me figure out why I'm not going to the next slide. Maybe it's because the timer is going off again. There we go. Okay, so this is great. So we just want to leave you again with the final slide here, which is what to prepare for November 2nd. So we're going to continue reading Making It, What Today's Kids Need for Tomorrow's World. We're into part 2, chapter 3, now that we've finished part 1. So that's pages 51 through 73. totally okay that when Stephanie Krause joins us in 2 weeks, that we're only partway through the book. We knew that was going to be the case. And I think that part of what will happen in 2 weeks is that she will provide a springboard as you move farther into the book and as we continue forward with the course. Continuing that thought, preparing 2 essential questions for Stephanie Malia Krause's visit. We've already got one on the table. Jillian, we were talking in small group about automation and all of that. We really want everybody to come to the table with these questions. We would love a situation where when we meet with her, and it'll be about, I think it's like 8 or 9 o'clock Illinois time for her, after she's put her kids to bed, that we end up leaving questions on the table rather than not having enough questions for her. There's just so much to think about as you're reading through the book and as you're continuing through the course. Okay, so continue blogging or first blog. So first blog completed by November 2nd. Some of you have already done that already. And I emailed you a link to Serena's blog. And then there are others now that are out there that you can, and remember on the What School Could Be platform, in your course, under topics, under IHC blogs, that's where you can access everybody else's blog by just clicking on the link. Commenting on each other's blogs when you have time is fantastic. We hope that you can do that. And then a second blog by January 4th, third blog by March 22nd, fourth blog by May 3rd. But again, we hope that you use this tool in your relationship with your executive coach and with your principal as a way to reflect on what's happening to you as you go through the course and as you go through this school year. So more than 4 is absolutely fantastic if you can carve out time for that. Continuing with your scheduled executive coach meetings, we had a great orientation session with them last week where we kind of caught up with them and got some of their thoughts about what's been happening. And we were super encouraged to hear about all the meetings that have been happening with your coaches, and they're so invested in you. That was the huge takeaway from that meeting. They really care about you and they really want to help and support you as you go forward. So, and also your principal/head meetings that we'll be continuing with those. We do have a tentative date for our Celebration Summit, which we think, as we calibrate the public, private, and charter school calendars, that it might be June 3rd. So that's a Friday evening. We are crossing our fingers that that could happen in person. We already have a location, which would be a beautiful facility at Kewalo Basin overlooking the surf spot right there. It's called the Net Shed. It's Kupu. And Kupu has been a wonderful partner for me over the years. They've already said, thumbs up, let's do it. So I think you don't have to do anything right now, but just to look at the calendar for yourself and your families and your community and give us the thumbs up that that date is okay. Again, it would be late afternoon, probably like 4 or 5 o'clock for several hours. A celebration, a public exhibition of your work, lots of food, hugs, and a chance for everybody that's going to be part of this course, including the ECs and your principals and heads and your greater communities and your families, to join in that day. So we just wanted to put that on the table. Okay, so we're at 5:58. I think we'll drop the round the horn. Let's finish early for the first time since we started this thing. Any questions or anything here at the end? I'm going to stop sharing so we come back. Any thoughts, any questions, any clarification that we can offer here at this point? I think Joel's been listening in this entire time. Yeah. And again, yeah, he's there. So he's there to support you with your data dashboards and all of that development. We just wanted to reiterate that point, the extent to which he's there to support you. So you can text him, you can email him, and as you go forward. Joel, any final thoughts in this last 30 seconds? Are we good? That's awesome. Okay, thanks, Joel. Glad you were here to listen to all of the initial presentations. Okay, I think we're there. We'll see you on November 2nd with Stephanie Krause and a couple of other things that we're going to be planning for that time as well. Okay, bye everybody.
Have a good evening.
Hello.
Bye.
Oh, Josh, I have a quick question when everyone's popped.
Sure.
I do also.
Okay, awesome.
I was just curious, but do you guys send the slides or anything to the principals? I'm always being asked, what are you doing? What are you learning? We didn't hear from them. So are you planning on doing that, or did you want me to keep summarizing for her? My principal's always asking me.
Actually, that's a great question. We have sent all of the 4 slide decks to date to your executive coaches. It was on the table and it's been on my to-do list to actually do the same thing for your principals or heads of school. So it sounds like you think that that would be a good idea.
Well, she just asks me and I don't have a copy of them.
Yeah.
So that's all.
So you know just that you can access them on the platform, right?
Oh,
So
I
if
didn't.
Yeah, so if you go on the platform into your course and you go to topics, every single session, there's a session recap by date, and every one of them has a copy,
awesome.
a PDF copy of it as well.
Okay, then no need. Maybe she was just having FOMO. I don't know.
Yeah, I think maybe we wanted to stay out of their inboxes as much as possible. So I think this would be a better solution then. We won't email them with it unless they ask for it. And then if they ask, you can, yeah, okay. Jillian, was
show
it?
her. You can share it with, I mean, you can sit with her and show her the slide deck as
Yeah.
you try to explain to her what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you, guys.
Okay, that's terrific. Jillian, bye,
Okay,
Jess.
Mine's also about like material acquisition. I tried to find the blogs the way you said, and I got to topics and I got to blogs.
Let me show you right here. I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
So give me one sec. I just find where my Chrome is. Here we go, Jillian. So when you're looking at Chrome, let me move you the Zoom screen out of the way, and you're in our course.
Mhm.
And then you go here on the left-hand side to topics.
Okay.
And at the very top, you see IHC cohort participant blog sites.
Yes.
As you scroll down, if you move your cursor over the link, which has generally the photo above, it opens into the blog, and you can, yeah, that's it. You're all there. Everybody is there right now.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate